U.S. troops on the direct order of President Donald Trump will withdraw from Syria. And we're told, and I've looked at some of the paragraphs from General James Mattis' resignation letter as Secretary of Defense this week, that resignation has a lot to do with the president's decision concerning removing American troops from Syria and endangering American allies like the Kurds. Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, former U.S. Navy lieutenant commander, he's from Syria, still has family in the country. He's the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, and founder of TakeBackIslam.com and co-founder of the Muslim Reform Movement. Joins us on this program quite regularly. Zuhdi, thank you so much for the time. And what do you make of both developments, the president's decision to remove American troops from Syria and General Mattis' decision to resign as Secretary of Defense?
Yeah, I think I'm a bit as confused as everybody because on the one hand, let's look at the reality. We barely had 2,000 troops there. They were simply defensive. There was no offense in Syria. It was special forces, and yet those 2,000 troops are one of the most successful special forces operations in history because it controlled, with the Kurds, 30% of Syria. So now they're going to be letting that go, and the Kurds are going to be vulnerable, number one, to the Turks, number two, to the Iranians and Hezbollah, and three, to the Assadists and the Syrian regime. So it really doesn't make sense from an abandonment perspective. We're hearing that President Trump sort of jumped from the hip to that conclusion during a telephone conversation with Erdogan. Now, General Mattis is a huge loss for many of us, but make no mistake, Mattis was not looking at regime change in Syria. He was against any expansion of the operation, against the hard line on Iran. So bottom line is this may simply be sort of he was going to exit anyway, as was McGurk, as we heard today. So there's a lot of theater involved here. Bottom line is as somebody with family in Syria, as you said, having the adults out of the room, which is America, and our few allies, it would be it the French or others that were there, is going to be a major catastrophe as far as sort of letting Assad and Iran become completely, even more than they have been, unhinged as far as crimes against humanity in the region.
Plus, there's the concern, and I think a very legitimate concern, that ISIS will get back on its feet.
There's no doubt. This, my podcast released today is Jihadist 1, America 0. Because to say that we defeated ISIS is just absurd. The ideology is still there. There are 30,000 ISIS devotees still within Syria. Yes, they're much, much more on the run thanks to Secretary Mattis and the operations that President Trump allowed to happen, as you and I talked about last year. In the first half of 2017, they took a losing operation and made it actually 98% victorious. But the ideology is greater than it's ever been. Syria is teeming with jihadists from not only ISIS, but Al-Qaeda groups, Brotherhood groups, Hezbollah, Shia Islamists are teaming, Chechnyan, Salafi jihadists. So to say that we have won and we have completed operations, the only person I can think that's whispering in the president's ear is Rand Paul. But other than Rand Paul and President Trump, I don't know who else thinks that we have won the war against ISIS. They've gone underground. Their command and control in Raqqa is done, but they are like a hydra and will continue to resurface in the region. And to think that you can get rid of ISIS in a short term and it's not going to come back. He tweeted out yesterday, President Trump, that, Assad and Turkey and Russia will get rid of ISIS. They've never had an interest in ending ISIS. They use it as a foil to target moderates, to target the real enemies on the ground, which has been part of the ethnic cleansing process in Syria. They have absolutely no interest in ending the existence of ISIS, be it Iran, Assad, or Russia.
Removing those 2,000 U.S. troops and showing the flag, and as you said, they were also very effective militarily, is going to really create just a terrible situation for the Kurds and other American allies, but it will also provide Iran with a greater opportunity to be problematic toward Israel, and directly so.
So, let me punctuate this conversation with a utilitarian, which is often an unethical position, which is the ends justifies the means. I will tell you that it almost may be worthwhile to have us pull out those 2,000 troops. The only true victims initially are going to be the Kurds. But set aside the Kurdish issue, that place is going to implode and threaten Israel over the next year to the point there we will have to do something. So maintaining a defensive posture has prevented a degeneration of that region. Once it degenerates, those of us who are more hawkish are going to say, you know what, now we have to really do an operation more offensive to prevent Iran and other players from threatening Israel. And, in some ways it might end up actually proving to allow an operation that should have been done a year ago.
Let me go back to the beginning of our conversation. Is there any chance, do you think, for President Trump, because I understand that the Turkish President Erdogan was quite surprised during the phone call, this is what I read anyway, that he was very surprised that President Trump in the middle of the call assured him that he would remove American troops. Is there any chance that after everything that's been going on over the last 48 hours, that President Trump may reverse his field?
Who knows? Nothing. You can't put anything past the sort of, gymnastics that happen on a day-to-day basis in foreign policy by tweets, and I think that's why you're seeing some exit in the Pentagon. And I'm sure National Security Advisor Bolton was not in favor of this. There's been some disagreement.
Yeah.
It seems that many folks have been in disagreement with this. Even Erdogan, who is elated probably at seeing America leave, was not ready to say that he's going to have troops into Syria. So I really don't know the answer to that. All I know is that President Trump's little video about leaving Syria, we had already left. Those 2,000 troops were not, I don't think anyone who's reasonable thought that that was a part of an American force. It's the Afghanistan departure that's pretty significant, actually, and is a whole other conversation, and Taliban will regenerate itself. That is a major departure that even President Obama did not do. But this is actually worse than many of the criticisms that we conservatives gave Obama on how he lost the peace. President Trump is simply dotting the I's and crossing the T's on complete withdrawal from those regions.
Zudi, I thank you very much for the time. We'll see what happens over the short term. And over the longer term, who knows? As you said, it may prove to be a situation that becomes so untenable that there is a very strong response militarily and otherwise. Thanks for the time always.
Anytime. Thanks for having me, Roy.
Bye-bye. Dr. Zudi Jasser. He's the author of Battle for the Soul of Islam and the president and founder of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy and former United States Navy Lieutenant Commander.